rolling out. This is Christal Jordan with Reality Check, and this is a very, very exclusive Reality Check After Dark. Reality Check After Dark means that the women that are speaking and some of the content tonight was not basically suitable for daytime hours, so may be offended at content that does not, fit daytime hours situation, that you may want to turn off the channel right now. Because we're going to have an honest and uncensored conversation with women about the whole ride or die chick phenomenon, about some of the things that we see going on in social media and just our culture as a whole. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I think it's a very serious topic. I think it's something that we all should be able to listen to and to talk about. So I hope that you will come and listen with an open heart and open mind. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started and introduce tonight's panel. I have an actual friend of mine, someone I've known for about 10 years now, who I love dearly. We don't talk often, but when we do, we have, there's like a kindred spirit between the two of us. I'm happy to see her, but I'm not happy at the terms that I'm seeing her. But I want you guys to welcome socialite Lana Hampton.
Thank you.
Next to Lana is Sincere. Sincere has an amazing story. She's one of the most successful businesswomen in Atlanta, but she has a powerful, powerful testimony, and I just thank her. The little bit of time that I have known her and just heard her story, I'm so thankful that she agreed to come tonight. I know it was God's divine order to bring you here, so thank you so much, Sincere, for joining us. And last but not least is author Casey Mills. Casey writes about ride or die chicks. I had the pleasure of meeting her earlier this year and attending her book signing, reading a couple of her books, and so I thought that she would be a great third person for this panel because she writes about the phenomenon that we're going to be talking about with these other two ladies. And she also is someone that is, as an author, I think authors are kind of on the pulse of what's happening in the culture. So thank you, Casey, for joining us tonight. Now, tonight's panel basically came from a conversation. One of my colleagues called me that knows Lana and said, Christal, something's going on that you should know about and you want to know because you come in. And I said, Lana, I would do anything that she needs. She knows that. And so I want to just start tonight's discussion on ride or die chicks with you telling your story.
Okay, well, I'm going to self-surrender for prison on August the 15th, which is like a couple of days from now, and the time is going by so fast. But I got 39 months. It was a guy that I really, really cared about, and he and I have been friends for a while, and I'm very nervous only because it's very, very sensitive to me, because when you care about someone, you'll do anything for them. You don't question stuff. You, just like I know you, Christal, if you ask me, it's like, hey, can you run a car for me? Not that you would need that, but it's just those simple things, that you would say, of course, I'm not going to ask you what you need a car for. Where are you going with it? Okay, I'm going to sign my name on it. It's just that simple. So this guy and I had a romantic relationship, but then we decided to be friends. And he started dating R&B artist Chante Moore. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with who she is. Her career has not been the greatest, but she's kind of a legend in her own right. So we parted ways. We ended up being BFFs in a sense. So he came to me and he said, hey, I'm dating Shante, and I'm good with that. We had moved on from that point. We had other business ventures that we did. Everything was good. So he and Shante started their little business venture, love affair, and I'm going to kind of like fast forward because I don't want to waste a lot of time on the intricate details. But Shante had Rise of the Phoenix. That was her new revamped career. What I'm going to jail for is the money that was used for her new project is the money I'm going to jail for. He introduced a business opportunity to me from a friend of his, and that friend of his, which I did not know, they had other fraudulent They embezzled money, they laundered money, they did a lot of different things, they stole money. So anyways, I sat as a minority business owner for a construction project out in Texas, the Love Meridian Hotel, which it's here as well. They needed some reconstruction done. So the person that he knew, he was over the Beck Group. The Beck Group is an internationally known construction company here in the U.S. and abroad. $60 million project. He came to me, business opportunity, I'm gonna cut you 20%, all I need is your name. And with your name, because you're African American, Latino woman, we're gonna get perks. I don't care about that. I trust you. I know you're not gonna put me in harm's way. You know my kids know your kids come over to my house. Everybody's good. So I signed on. I opened up a business with the Secretary of State. I had questions because my thing was, okay, do I need to go to Houston, because that's where my case is out of, do I need to see every day-to-day activity? He said, no. We're gonna subcontract the work out. I think that's legitimate. I've had businesses before. You know, I had a cleaner come to me. I don't want to clean that day. Guess what? I'm calling up Maria the maid or whatever, and she's going to go out and clean. I'm going to give her a portion. I take a portion. That's illegal. Not with the MBE. MBE is minority business enterprise. It's only given to black minority companies that's trying to get into the construction industry.
And they want you to actually be the one to do it.
Correct. You have to have products and services. Never read the fine print. And I'm a smart girl, you know, but at the end of the day, because I trusted him, I didn't feel like he would do nothing to do anything to me. I'm going to take my 20%, I'm going to go. I'm not going to sit there. If I don't got to go to Houston, great. I just need my 20%. So the first invoice came through my account, which I had to open up a business account, $128,000. The next, they ordered light fixtures, because I had a light fixture company, Lucid Wholesale Lighting Fixtures. They ordered the light fixtures, so I'm thinking, okay, I signed off on the first invoice. Everything is good. I send my vendors their checks. Everybody's good. No problem. The second invoice came to me. It was like $347,000. So I'm like, okay, something's not right here. This invoice doesn't match the order form that was sent to me. What's going on? There's nothing going on. There's nothing going on. All you got to do is sign this and that. And I'm like, but that gut feeling is always the right feeling. But because, truth be told, I loved him. I did. And I felt like if I was to say something, then I wasn't being loyal anymore. So guess what I did? I kind of just stuck my head in the dirt and said, I'm going to let this ride, I'm going to sign my name on this, and I'm going to let it go, because he wouldn't do that to me. But in essence, I did it to myself because I knew it wasn't right. But I'm not a person to call the police. I can see you beating your wife over here, I'm not calling the police. Me and you could have a little fight, I'm not calling the police. So because of my loyalty, I just couldn't do it. Even though in the pit of my soul, I knew something was right. So I let it go on. So in the midst of that, he had other friends that he brought in. I showed them how to set up. And this was before the invoicing came in. You know, things are not in order here, kind of chronologically. But he had recruited his brother. So of course, I don't think nothing is wrong. You're going to recruit your brother. You recruit your homeboy girlfriend. Of course, you know, you love her. You know, all of us are cool. She recruited her daughter. Then I recruited a great friend of mine. So all I can say is, when I look back, I wish that I would have did something different, but I don't know what that different thing could have been, because I have been from the streets. I do know what ride or die means. I come from a long line of drug dealers. I come from, you know, I know politicians, I know athletes, I know everything. But at the end of the day, it's like, there's nothing in me that could pick up the phone and call the feds up and say, you know what, this is not right now. So now I'm in a situation, I'm losing my kids. I had to separate them. One of my sons are with his father in Texas. My other son's gonna be here, you know, and it puts you in a bad situation, because I really feel like I made a wrong decision. But then I'm like, what about my loyalty? This loyalty is who I am. I am true to who I am. If I fuck with you, I just fuck with you. You know what I mean? So it's like what I do. So in all of this, I have went to counseling. I do go to therapy. You know, but I'm still conflicted because who I am is who I am.
Right.
But everyone's telling me is like, you can't straddle the fence. You can't be the best of both worlds. You either gonna be in the streets or you either gonna be right. You're gonna be a law-abiding citizen and you're gonna do what's right, or you're gonna be over here and you're gonna do what's wrong. And I'm always conflicted with that.
Well, I think that it's interesting because I've known you for a while, but I was feeling like women, I think women have this internal conflict all the time. We asked several young women under the age of 25 what did they think the idea of being a ride or die chick was. And all of those young women, except for one, said that it meant being loyal to a guy regardless of what, right? Our culture is one that perpetuates the importance of loyalty, especially on a woman's part. I think it's a great time to bring in Sypreme because she's kind of on the other end of what you've gone through. And so when you ask the question, what do I do? I think her example kind of sets the tone for that. So can you share a little bit about your background, Sypreme?
Sure. My name is Sypreme Essence. I evolved into this new person. I reinvented myself because the person that is somewhat still inside me is dormant. And I'm glad about that. I've been a so-called, I'm putting so-called because I really wasn't a ride or die chick like I thought a ride or die chick, the definition is. But I was loyal to the streets. I was loyal to men who all they did was use me because they knew that I was so, I would do anything to be loyal to my team. I started going to, juvenile when I was a teenager. I used to steal cars and run with dudes in the project. I was the only girl on my team, besides my cousin, but I don't throw her under the bus. And we just used to steal cars, and I was just loyal to them, getting in a lot of trouble. I did my first bid in prison during the 3rd trimester of my pregnancy with my youngest son in 1997. It was my first time. I caught a cell charge, again, being loyal to the streets and to the people I ran with. Winding back, being loyal to the streets, I witnessed a murder, and jumping in cars with people I didn't really know, and that just, from there, my life just spiraled down because I was so fearful every single day. I used to drink a lot, and I used to drink a lot so that I can cope with society and cope with just going out in public. I was always scared because of what I witnessed. And at the time, I didn't know I suffered from PTSD. I didn't know that, learned that until 2006 when I did my, was it my 3rd bid? My 2nd bid. 2006, I did my 2nd bid, locked up. And I did that behind a dude that I thought loved me. How I got with him, I met him in the club, and everything about him, I just loved, just the fast life. At the time, I was with my son's father, who was a square, and I just was attracted to the streets. And because I used to drink so much, I was able to cope and be in the streets with this guy. We started selling drugs together. When I got busted, this dude put an ounce of cocaine in my hand and had me deliver it to someone. And that person happened to be working with the police. So this dude, he kind of had a feeling that the guy was working with the police, but he put me in harm's way so that he can get off. But what happens is, when they got you and they know, so they knew how much he was involved. And because I didn't tell on him or the connect, I wound up doing 3 years in prison, the state prison in Connecticut. I got out in 2009, and I went and dealing with another dude. He put his hands on me, so I cut him. And because I was on parole, I went back to prison. Literally a year to the day I got out, I went back for another 9 months. And during that time in 2010 is when I said enough is enough, because I was the shortest bid I've ever done. Plus, it was the most difficult bid I've ever done. For the simple fact, people get tired of your shit. People get tired of your family, your friends. You know, before when I used to go to prison, I was that ride or die chick. So my friends would write me, they would say, come and see me. My son's father always been there for me, just to make sure my books were straight. I had a TV, I was straight. And this time it's like, you know what, everybody was like, we weren't doing it no more. So during that time is when I really came to peace with myself. I started forgiving those in my past who hurt me, and I started working on myself. And when I started forgiving people and taking initiative, taking responsibility for my actions, for being a monster that I became, is when I started to evolve into this new person that I am today. The thing inside me, that's what I call the thing inside me, still lies dormant. So I'm still a work in progress. You know, I just have to think before I react, because I don't want to go back to prison. I have too much to lose. So I won't allow anyone to take that from me. So I was a ride or die chick to the streets, ride or die chick to dudes, and now the definition of the ride or die chick is me nurturing the man I'm with today, who is my husband. He's a great guy, and we build together. And I'm a ride or die chick with him now. In a good way.
I want to ask you, Sypreme, because you mentioned that during multiple situations, and that seems to be like what happens in bad relationships, period. Not everybody's bad relationship. Every ride or die chick doesn't go to jail, right? Some ride or die chicks just are sitting at home taking care of a guy's babies that he had with other women, right? Some ride or die chicks are just sitting there letting somebody use their money and drive their car and drive other women around and not being upset about it or not saying anything about it. I want to make sure that we don't start to look at, it's not prison, it's not the result, I mean, it's not the actual end result, it's what caused you to get there, right?
It's extreme.
It is
Just like
extreme.
I was listening to her, because this is not my first time. I did 5.5 years for the other guy that I was with. So I'm just listening to her and I'm relating, because you just can get caught up in a man so much. And, you know, everyone was like, oh yeah, you're a nice looking woman, but, you know, it goes back to broken homes.
Right.
You know, like, and my home has been broken. I did not grow up traditionally. I could crack when I was 15. My father pimped women, he sold drugs. I could crack for him. You know, I was, you know, abused and molested when I was young, my father went to prison. You know, it's just a lot of stuff, and when you get all of that, and you have a woman, and you out here, sometimes you can't control it. You know what I mean? It's like, it becomes a lifestyle to you. It becomes natural, and you think that it's right, but it's not right.
Right.
And I should have been corrected a long time ago, but I didn't have the family, I didn't have the support. You know, for anyone to step in when I was 13 or 14 and be like, look, I need to grab a hold of you. I need to show you what love is. I need to show you what a woman is. Everything I've learned on my own.
Right.
You know, or a man taught me. You know, so now I have this, it's like some homage I gotta pay to a man, because I feel like he deserves it. You know, and he doesn't. But because life has been so broken for me. So now I'm trying to repair. I saw my father murdered in front of me. The guy that killed my father made me watch while he shot my father in front of me. So it's like I had to be strong. I'm a survivor. You put me in, throw me out the window, I'm gonna show what I do. I'm gonna land on all fours like a cat, and I'm gonna keep it moving. You know, like it's survival.
It's survival, and I think that's a thing that as women we all know how to do, right? Especially black women, it seems like that's all we can do. I saw a post today that said no matter what, if you ask her if she's okay with tears in her eyes, she's gonna say, I got it.
Yep.
And I think that's what we do, but what we don't acknowledge is that we are broken inside. So yes, she's surviving on the outside, you are beautiful, nobody would know anything that's going on ever, because you look at you don't look that way, but there's a broken little girl inside. Casey, you write about this, and you talk about, you know, even though you haven't been through this, even though I haven't been through this, we all relate to feeling some of the, you know, we all have that consistent feeling sometimes as women, and especially now that our culture says, as a woman, you're not enough. You're not always enough. There's so much going on, and men have kind of become the prize, and we're looking to see where we fit in that picture. When you write stories, because a lot, you know, the characters in your book kind of mirror some of the things going on here, where do you find that inspiration from, and where do you find inspiration that can kind of pull people out of these types of situations?
You know, the interesting thing is when she touched on broken families. So our stories are all different, you know, but we all have an underlying factor. We have broken families. I was raised, quotation, by a father who was a manipulator. Brilliant man, but he wasn't a family man, you know. Papa was a rolling stone. So I watched my mother be his ride or die, not in the streets, but as a woman who did not value herself enough to want more until she finally did. You know, so when I write these stories, it comes from that. I'm a layer of what you guys are, I just made different choices. So that extreme, that broken home, what it did for me was push me a different way. When I met my husband, you know, we've been together 24 years, I wanted so badly to reverse what I had seen and what I didn't have, that I worked hard to go in the opposite direction of what you guys did. So it worked, but it doesn't work for everybody. So when I write these stories, the foundation of my experiences in life, you know, are there. What I see in the news about you guys, what, you know, all of those things. So I craft these stories and I write about these women, and some of them win and some of them lose. But I do that in a sense to embrace the reality of it, but also to show that some of them can win, because it's all about showing the choices, because there are choices. So I show some that make those positive choices and some that make those negative choices, and it brings it all together. So it's not perfection, but it's real,
Right.
you know, and the emotions are there, and these women read these books as escapes, and some of them read them because this is what I'm going through, and some of them read them because I'm intrigued, and instead of me going out to be a ride or die to the streets or to a man, I'm gonna get that edge in this book, you know. So that's the interesting part of it. It's just reality, and society says that as women, we're not enough unless we have that validation. And
Right.
so I try to build these women that maybe some of them don't make the best choices, but eventually they get it and they realize that, okay, maybe I don't need that validation. I'm enough, you know, that kind of thing.
Getting that validation for yourself can be difficult. Like, you know, you see people's like, self-esteem is esteem of yourself, but it's like, where do I find that, right? So I can remember, my story is different, but my father was addicted to drugs. I didn't grow up in the house with my father, but I was very aware that he was gone. And then when I was trying to reach out to him, because like most little girls, I was like, I call myself a daddy's little girl with no daddy. So I would reach out to him, and when I would reach out to him, my grandfather said, I have Christal, your dad's on drugs. And so when I would talk to my dad, he wouldn't have a lot to say. But I can remember being 12 years old and going to visit Ohio, where I was born, and my dad, I knew I was going to see my dad. So that's my first cognizant memory of trying to be good enough, right? So I remember thinking I had acne really bad at that age, so I was like, oh my God, I don't want my dad to see me if I had acne on my face.
At 12.
So at 12, I noticed that the guys at school, the coaches looked at us if we were pretty. So I wanted to be pretty to get my dad's approval, to get his validation. So I think if I were to ask myself, when is the first age that you're cognizant of wanting a man's validation and trying to do something to get that? It would be at 12 when I went to go visit my dad. So I'm going to ask each of you, when is the first age that you remember thinking that you had to do something, or to do something that a man wanted you to do to get that attention, to get that validation?
If I go back into this, I would say about 6. My father went to prison when he went to prison for bank robbery, and I could just remember him over the phone. And it's just like, oh, I love you. And I'm like, you know, and I would look forward to those phone calls. I look at my grandma, my granddad, you know, and things were going on. Like I said, there was a lot of abuse in the house. And it's just like, why you just can't come get me? You know, like, why you can't come? 6. But I don't want to go off that, but I just want to have one question for her while it's on my mind. So when you write your books, hopefully you'll write a book about me, because I want to say this, because this is how deep this gets.
Right.
What if you're writing about someone that is really a sickness? Like, I've been diagnosed, she's been diagnosed, but depression, bipolar, and post-traumatic stress disorder plays a lot in it because of
Everything you've done.
correct the trauma.
Right.
So maybe clinically, I know that you're not a doctor,
Right.
but you could help that way by writing from someone from a clinical standpoint, because the reason why some of the things that I've done, when I look after I do it, it's already done. But it's like, it's not something that I sat and thought about. It's just really, really psychological for me.
Here's what's interesting. So,
But you can come back to that. I didn't
I'm sorry. But, okay, so here's what's interesting. A lot of my books have my women and men seeking counseling. So I'm a therapist in my books.
Okay.
So the one that's coming out next, this woman was a ride or die in a sense because she felt like every man she had a serious relationship with left her for someone that was complete opposite of what she was. So she then built her body naturally though, but to fit the standards of what she thought that was, and then use sex as a coping mechanism. So she's seeing a therapist in my book, and I am counseling this woman because I'm writing it, you know, so it helps. And someone out there, and I'm not a therapist and I don't claim to be, but some stuff I can see about you that you can't see about yourself, so it helps, you know. So I approach, my stories are different in a sense because they're that way. They're not just cliche stuff that's happening in the world. I'm reading my books and I'm writing, my husband's like, oh, that must be real deep because my face, and I'm like in tears and, you know, that kind of thing. So I write emotional stories that can help women, so I do that.
I think that that's probably a good point, though, that you and I may have gone through things growing up, like
Right.
broken family, but I think sometimes the chemical imbalance in certain people can cause them to go through that same thing, but respond to it differently. Different responses, and sometimes some of us are just really good at hiding.
Absolutely.
So it may not be. I do want to ask you guys, though, because I think that it's important to kind of show that we are, from the age of being 6, you know, I probably would have been doing that at 6 if my dad had been around, but we are looking for that validation from a parent, from someone that loves us, and it later sometimes turns into attention, right? If you haven't gotten that. Can you remember an instance where you were first like, I want to, you know, be down with that person, or them to know that I'm loyal to them, or?
Yes, my uncle and I were about a year apart. So being raised partially by my grandmother, I lived in that house. So my uncle was just like, he was in the streets, he was a star basketball player, he was like real popular in school. So I would seek his attention or his friends' attention and do stupid stuff to make them laugh. I mean, like real dumb stuff. As a kid, stuff that got me in trouble. I mean I just wanted to prove to them that I won't tell grandma, you know. You could bring the girls, you could use my room, like I was just would do anything. I was loyal to him and his friends. He's always telling me, so he was loyal to me. But
That often happens.
he
I don't expect loyalty back
yeah, I was
from
seeking
men.
attention from him, and he was like crazy as hell.
Yeah,
Like why was I seeking attention from him?
yeah.
He's mental.
I think for me, mine kind of mirrors yours a little bit. Like I said, my father was a rolling boulder. But I realized that he loved me, but he loved the cute version of me. So when he had us and he'd dress us up and parade us around to his women to show that he was a good father, we got attention. I got attention. I got to shine. I got to be around him because I wanted that. I didn't
Right.
understand it. So I was, 8, 9 years old, and I realized that if I'm cute, if I'm pretty, if my hair's done right, and I have on this cute dress, and Dad's gonna take me, even if we gotta go sit at some woman's house that I don't know, I still get his attention. So that early in life, I needed that validation. And those things break things in us that we don't realize, and then you grow up and you're an adult and you can't function normally in a sense because that's embedded in you.
Right.
So those are things that, we need to talk about
Right.
and work on as a people, to have the conversation as women to say, hey, we're all different, but what's your story?
Right. Right, and
Because
find
it
that
helps.
commonality, and then the funny thing is about those things that are broken in us, getting into a relationship always uncovers your brokenness, right? There's nothing like a relationship to show you your issues for some reason. So I want to take a break to just, we have some people coming in, and just let the Facebook audience know we apologize for going long, but we are in the middle of Reality Check After Dark. This is Christal Jordan, your host. We are talking about being a ride or die chick, and what does that mean? We've heard from Lana and also Sincere about being ride or die chicks to the point of actually having to take a bid for a relationship with a guy. Casey writes about this in a lot of her novels. We're going to take a quick break on Facebook. We're going to come back with part 2. Please stay tuned to Reality Check After Dark. Are you a ride or die chick? This has been Christal Jordan. We'll be right back.